We also want to democratize SaaS capabilities and to give it to the industry and to support that. So every developer will be able to use that, and also maybe vendors, and we want to contribute to that community. We believe it becomes, in a sense, it's a commodity. And this is why we wanted to take part of it.
I do expect that people will look at it awkward and say, hey, why didn't you contribute to Semgrep, right? Directly. And there are reasons, right? There are reasons. I mean, for example, for us in Mobb, we don't have the OCaml capabilities. We don't have those resources. And coming together, we can help sponsor it.
Welcome to the season 3 of The Elephant in AppSec, the podcast to explore, challenge, and boldly face the AppSec elephants in the room. I'm Alexandra, your host and AppSec enthusiast and growth manager at Escape. Recently, Opengrep made headlines as a new open source project based on a fork of Semgrep Community Edition with the goal of democratizing SAST. As you know, I'm always ready to dive into controversial topics on The Elephant in AppSec, and this episode is no exception. But before we jump in, full disclosure, I'm staying neutral in this conversation. I've had the privilege of collaborating with incredible people on both sides of the discussion, and I'm here to explore all perspectives. I spoke with the teams behind Opengrep, Arnica, Mobb, Aikido, and JIT, to explore what inspired them to get involved, the feedback they've received, both positive and negative, since the launch, and what lies ahead for the project. What will Opengrep look like a year from now? If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to subscribe and follow it on your favorite podcasting app or YouTube. It's the best way to avoid missing future episodes. By the way, if you want to dive deeper into their plans, join the Opengrep Open Roadmap session tomorrow, link in the description, or check out the next version of Opengrep which will launch next week. Dive right in! Hi everyone, I'm super excited to have all of you today on the Elephant in AppSec podcast. I think it's the biggest podcast yet with the biggest amount of people that I've recorded. So I'm super excited to hear all of your opinions, especially about such controversial project that just got recently released and I think generated a lot of buzz on LinkedIn, Opengrep. And it's, not every day that we have so many competitors on a single podcast and working on one project and coming to sharing how they've supported it. So I'm excited to just kind of challenge you on that topic and understand what was the interest behind it, and so we can share it with the audience. All of you. Maybe in the beginning, we can do just a little bit intro about what each of you does at Arnica, at Aikido, at Mobb and JIT, and you can share how you specifically contributed to that project. So, Aidan, maybe we can start from you, since I guess I'm the most familiar with your background.
Sure. Hi everyone. Aidan Volstead here. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Mobb, automatic remediation platform. This platform is a big one for us at the moment, but automatic remediation solution, let's call it that way. And Will, maybe I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, sure. I'm the technical co-founder of Aikido Security, so I spend my days building the product, basically.
So you spend your days coding or more technical strategy?
I would say mostly reviewing code, and maybe on the weekends some code, if that makes sense.
So do you see a lot of security issues on your side when developers?
Oh yeah, of course, tons. I mean, security developers who work in security are just like normal developers, right? They make the same mistakes.
Yeah, it's more training, I think, with the time. Or, I mean, depends. Sometimes developers working in security can be very security obsessed. I met those actually too. And what about you, Aaron?
A lot of technical co-founder there, CTO and co-founder at Arnica. What we do is pipeline-less developer-native workflows, also called an ASPM, and super excited to be here. Thanks for that great collaboration.
So yeah, we're going to have a very technical discussion today, I guess.
I'll try to catch up.
Me too. And what about you, Aviram?
Hi, I'm Aviram Shmueli. I'm one of the co-founders at JIT. JIT is a comprehensive product security platform that covers all the product security capabilities from code to cloud to runtime. I've been at JIT at the beginning. I was heading the product management, and today I'm more customer oriented.
Okay.
Okay, so one more person, not on the technical side, I guess. You are a bit less, but yeah. So now for the main topic, of our conversation. So Opengrep, it came out as a big surprise, and I guess you took you some time to work on it and to prepare the announcement. And I really wanted to know what actually drove all of you to unite, because on this topic, and maybe kind of forget all of your differences. And what, for example, for you, Willem, what was the reason why you decided to join and build in that?
Yeah, first of all, I don't think we're like super heads up competitors. Like I think we target like different niches and so forth. So it made a lot of sense to reach out, I think, to each other. I don't think we had a lot of like advanced notice actually. So what we noticed was that like I think a lot of us have been building on Semgrep for the last 2-3 years, and they were advertising specifically that that was possible as long as you build your own rules, right? Which I think all of us have teams that build custom Semgrep rules. And so you would notice from time to time that the engine would break down in specific parts, and then you'd make like a GitHub issue. But usually those would never get resolved, right? And that is like a paper cut. That is not a fun thing, but that in and of itself wasn't enough to like start this whole fork, right? I think at some point the thing that like pushed us to do that was like this announcement by Semgrep themselves, where they said like, okay, we're gonna make some changes to the way that the licensing works, which I think somehow seemed to make the ice that we were standing on it made it seem a bit thinner, right? So at that point we started thinking like, what else? Like if we forked it hard, what else can we fix? What else can we make better? And like this didn't happen in a single night, right? I think, like, I don't know about you guys, but we were talking to Semgrep for over a year in talks to license like the private version that they have, but I think they don't really want to license that to competitors, I guess. So in a way, we had a long time, like years of usage of open source usage to to gather experience with the tool, I guess. But when we decided to fork it a month ago, I don't think there was a lot of prep time. I think we had like 2 or 3 weeks of prep time. So it was like all of our marketing departments were rushed into this, kicking and screaming.
But I can say that from our perspective, the story is a bit different. We also, by the way, reached out to Semgrep. We don't do scanning ourselves, so we weren't impacted. And I think part of the announcement that Semgrep did was very confusing, and everyone were confused about that. And as soon as they posted, I posted like a popcorn comment, and I reached out to Neil and I told him, "What are you guys going to do?" And he said, "We're not really impacted. We can fork before that." And then I think that Arnica and Aikido were starting all this notion for this. For me, the interest of doing that is I do believe in the democratizing SAST, and I want it to be for everyone. I mean, I'm not saying that Semgrep/Opengrep is as good as some of the other SaaS tools today. When people ask me about which is the best SaaS tool, I'm saying there is the one for you. So the more tools and the easier it is for people to use a tool that is best for them, that's good. And I was concerned, like Willem said, that some of the capabilities in the community edition will be moved out and the engine will be not as strong, and that will hurt everyone. And we wanted everyone to have access to a good, strong SaaS solution. So we didn't have the 1 year experience that Willem mentioned. We weren't in touch with them that much. For us, Semgrep is more of we reached out to them to want to partner with them, like we partner with other SaaS tools, but that didn't work.
So it was more aspirational, I guess, for you initially. And I saw Aaron was nodding a lot as well.
I agree with both of you in a way. In our case, the thought it came out the moment that announcement was announced. I reached out to Nir and said, what if we go the open search and open Terraform, open Tofu way with this as well? And the timing was just great when Willem and Aikido reached out to the community very quickly. A lot of Nir reached out to a lot of his friends, and a lot of companies were in. And I think it's important to say that some positive things about Semgrep and all that. We have no issue with Semgrep. It's a great company, a supporter of open source, and the frog was boiling very, very slowly in that case, where we felt that, as they said, too many features are being moved into the pro version that are, it just felt the right timing to do this fork, where the interests of more than one company is the one that drives the roadmap and the development of a tool that millions of people are using.
And what was it for you, Abiram?
I think that first, it's super important to recognize the contribution of Semgrep to the industry. Their SAST, the SAST engine, and the rules, and basically the detection that they contribute to the community and to the developers. I think it's amazing, and they are an important pillar in the SAST domain. I think that at the end we wanted to take part in Opengrep because, like Eitan mentioned, we also want to democratize SaaS capabilities and to give it to the industry and to support that. So every developer will be able to use that, and also maybe vendors, and we want to contribute it to that community. We believe it becomes, in a sense, it's a commodity, and this is why we wanted to take part of it.
I do expect that people will look at it awkward and say, hey, why didn't you contribute to Semgrep, right? Directly. And there are reasons, right? There are reasons. I mean, for example, for us in Mobb, we don't have the OCaml capabilities. We don't have those resources, and coming together, we can help sponsor it. But it's also, as Willem said, they had issues that maybe would not be promoted, right? If we wanted, at the end, Semgrep owns it. Semgrep decides to pull something out. You cannot commit it back. You don't own the project, and that is also part of it. So I'm not, for those that are going to yell at us and shout, hey, you didn't contribute to that open source project. Well, we did. Now we are starting to. Yeah.
I think there were some legit comments on some platforms where it was like, okay, you just forked it and changed the name to the Opengrep. You haven't done any real work. But I think after a month or so, like, let's see in 6 months, and we'll see what the speed at which both projects have moved. And like, it's also a two-way street, right? Like, for example, we've made fixes to OCaml libraries that for sure will benefit Semgrep as well. Or we've made patches to make it Windows compatible that can just be copied by Semgrep as well. So the value goes both ways for the forks. It's not that we're just keeping all this value for ourselves. It's under the same LGPL license, which is like a strong copyleft license. So the value is like for everyone to benefit, right? And I go ahead.
I mean, the big value of Semgrep was always the custom rules. Is it something that you just mentioned, like you don't know how it's going to be within 6 months? Is it something that you're planning to nurture?
You mean the rules itself? I think
Yes.
for now we're focused on the first 6 months. I think we're focused on the engine itself. So like making sure that every edge case of like taint tracking or new languages or platforms like Windows, that they work really well, and that it's easier to contribute to the project, that it's easier to compile and stuff like that. And I think after that we might go into like beyond the engine and maybe publish benchmarks of rules or even rules themselves. So the rules, the custom rules, will stay, the templates themselves will stay Semgrep compatible. There's no plans to like introduce new syntax or stuff like that. But the main focus is really the engine right now, fixing performance bugs, all sorts of stuff.
Of course, community can contribute rules the same way. There's no limitations there, but the focus was indeed on the engine. I can say that from our side in Mobb, we will want to contribute more rules and more accurate rules because it serves everyone and it doesn't hurt us. But I think someone said that a lot of the IP is in the different rules. Like Semgrep has their own rules, and I don't expect every company to share their rules if it's part of what they provide, right? And that's perfectly fine.
Do
We
you
will share
plan to
all the
add?
rules because we don't care about that. This is not something we do.
I think over time, and this is like, I mean, maybe multiple years, but I guess like LLMs probably accelerated the timeline. Is that over time, I think the engine started to become commoditized. Then I think people realized the rules are probably commoditized as well. And so the only value you can bring on top is stuff like prioritization or even auto fixing the pull requests. And I think you see the Semgrep itself was also shifting towards those kinds of features.
I think the whole market is shifting a lot towards indeed prioritization. That's where most of ASPMs also. Verbal, how do you filter through the noise for all the tools together and then derive the value through it? And I think, yeah, false positives are always appearing. And then, well, there's a remediation part, as you know, done, for example, as well. But yeah, I think that's not the focus for you of the project that you mentioned. Yeah, that you focus on the engine part. But do you feel like you're equally all of you focusing and contributed to the project, or how do you divide what you're specifically contributing? Because in the beginning you worked and you optimize it. I guess not all contributions are equal. Can you share a bit specifically what you're adding to the project?
So as someone already said here, it's written in OCaml, which is like a very quite, I mean, I might upset some people here, but it's an old unpopular language that was invented in France, I think. And there's not a lot of people who are very good at it. They're hard to find. But so we went out and we found a few. So there's like, I think the team for Opengrep is now like 3 FTEs. And so they're specifically working on Opengrep only, and all the consortium members pool resources, monetary resources together for those FTEs. So that there's like a long-term support. It's not just like we forked it and spent a couple of weeks on it. I think we contributed for long-term maintenance here.
When you think about it, it's like sponsoring an open source project, but like any other, but we couldn't do that when it was Semgrep, and now we can do that, and those developers will work for the community. It's not that they will work for a specific company. It's a mix of companies with mixed agendas sometimes and priorities, and therefore that's why the community will be the one to rule and to make sure.
What was the most controversial comment from the community that you've heard or seen after the release?
The most?
Well, okay, the one you remember,
I mean, there were folks that, so let's, as Aviram said, right, we have a lot of respect for Semgrep. And I think that if they weren't making that announcement that triggered the move, it would not happen, and maybe much later. That scared people. That scared us. That scared community. That scared area people. And that's why we went with that direction. So people were considering us glitchers in a way, and hey, why didn't you contribute in the past, and you're ruining the open source model of all sorts of things, right? At the end, I think that time will be the judge. A year from now, 2 years from now, we will know if it was a good idea. Maybe there is no plan to hold this project for long as owned by this group. There's a chance to discussions of moving it to an OWASP or Linux Foundation or one of those, but still sponsoring, still standing behind it and contributing, because we know what happened to some other OWASP projects that didn't get the sponsorship behind it. So let's call it open source on steroids in a way, because there are those open source contributors that they get paid.
Yeah, we do not want to control it in any way. We would like to transfer it to the community, which will drive the agenda, and we'll set up the roadmap, and we are there to support.
Okay. Yeah, I think the hardest part is actually maintaining something long term always. Launching something is sometimes easier than actually making it grow, making it scale, nurturing the community. And that's potentially the hardest part behind the all open source projects, because you see so many on GitHub where the last fork was, I don't know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and so on. Especially I see it when I visit like application security engineers profiles who contributed or created them. Like as you said, we'll see, I guess in a year whether like how it's going to thrive and whether it's going to thrive. So as long as you think you're sponsoring, are you going to try somehow sometimes boost the community? Because I saw you have upcoming product roadmap soon. Is it one of the levers that you're gonna try to kind of boost the community engagement at the beginning?
We're looking to do more than just code contribution, right? I think that Madeline, the marketing person for Aikido, I think, right, Will? I'm giving a talk next month in Snowfrock, and I saw that she's giving a talk about Opengrep. We want to market it more. We want to make the community aware of it and leverage it more. And I'm sure that all of the people here are talking with their customers about this. The idea is, if you think about the open source model, you want to have companies standing behind that model. You want it to not be just one company, because then they influence. The fact that there are competing companies here actually protects the open source project, in my opinion. And the door is open for more companies to join. So there are the 10 companies now, but no reason not to have more. And then you can hire more resources and support it even more.
And I think in the beginning we also had a kind of a small discussion about whether you're planning to integrate it with other security tools. And you said, yeah, there's potentially no plan for that, but then you all got different opinions. So what is actually, a plan maybe here, or if there's one?
Sure. I mean, it's an open tool, and it can be contributed by everyone, used by everyone. So there's no limit on who can integrate it, as long as they keep the license terms and don't get us in trouble, don't get Semgrep in trouble. So it's an open world.
Yeah, I guess I think we expect all the consortium members to integrate with their commercial offerings, and that will also benefit. It'll become the usage will become bigger, so there will be more feedback, and that will in turn increase the quality of the product. And I think like in a lot of spaces, it's not always the best engineered product that wins the market, but in this very specific case, because our target users are engineers, I think eventually they will flock to the product that is the most user friendly for engineers, that has the least amount of crashes, that is the fastest. So I think that's how we're gonna try to win people over. And I mean, if we win at all of those things, and Semgrep eventually copies those changes as well to their product, then we'll have won, right? Because all of those, then essentially the tools are available for everyone.
And as Willem said earlier, right? Yes, they were over a year working with Semgrep, but we rushed into this Opengrep. We are not hiding that. Mistakes happen. Mistakes will happen. Not everything was planned yet. If we are going to add more capabilities, maybe, probably. We don't know yet. Right? We're still in the steps of, okay, let's make sure that everything is working. Let's make sure that we add critical engine capabilities and we had a couple of discussions internally what each company sees from their clients, from their customers, what they are complaining about, from their own experience. And we all mentioned performance. This is something that we see, for example, and some mentioned languages that were removed. So
Yeah,
we
there
want
were
to
some
make
good
sure
discussions, right? Like I think at some point someone even, I don't know who it was, but someone had the idea of calling it Semgrep instead of Opengrep, which might have been a little bit too on the nose. But yeah, I think people have the weirdest feature requests, right? Like sometimes there's like people asking like, hey, can you make it compatible with COBOL or some old
Yeah.
basic version? So we'll see. We'll try to like harmonize the roadmap in a way across all the members.
and we have them.
Yeah, but
The open one for everyone to hear about the roadmap and suggest roadmap. That's the idea. Sorry, Aviram.
no, I was just starting to say that I think it's very exciting that companies who compete on a daily basis, they find a way to collaborate in such a meaningful way and to contribute to an open source that will serve the community. And we have many discussions, all of us, and we talk about the strategy and the features and the roadmap, all of that. And the way all those competitors do that in such an elegant way, I think it's I don't know, it's a great indication for the maturity of those companies and the people who manage them.
I agree.
And for the security market, it's also a good way to see how we can create synergies between different companies and
Exactly.
build projects together. For sure. One of the people who I think gave the most feedback on the project was James Bertotti. Well, for him, it is part of his job now as an analyst, and he wrote the whole article on Opengrep because I guess, yeah, he got a preview beforehand. But one of his reactions that I read was what happens, for people I use vendor, X or Y, who doesn't use Semgrep, so I don't really care about this. How do you guys plan to overcome such feedback, and demonstrate actual value? Because you mentioned, like, for you, the key value will be to technical people who like to actually do technical things. I think, William, you said that. How do you plan to demonstrate the value to these people who are more skeptical?
I can tell you that the one thing that the team did initially was making it much easier to install and to run it. And then we had a company that wanted to try it out, and we were talking with them and said, hey, try Opengrep. And they wanted the GitHub Actions, so we created one for them, like nothing. Everything was easy on that sense, but I think that we cannot prove anything that we say now. We cannot prove it. It's only if we reconvene in 6 months or a year and judge by the actions. We have a lot of good intentions. We need to prove it.
Yeah, and it depends on like who you're talking to, right? Like a smaller 10 or 20 person or 20 developer shop, they probably won't care what engine is used by their SaaS vendor. And I think again in the end, like all of this is being commoditized. So it makes sense that we're all using the same tool here and not reinventing the wheel, since all of the focus is going to shift to prioritization and then on auto fixing.
When you think about it, Semgrep was doing the same, right? They added value on top of the Semgrep engine. And the folks here will compete, will get to the same customers, and they will just not compete on the engine itself. Will compete on other elements of the solution.
What are the elements do you think will compete the most? Remediations?
I hope to partner with all of these folks here, so I'm not competing with them.
That's a very politically correct answer.
I think in the end, everyone will have the same remediations because everyone will just use the state-of-the-art models. There have been competitors who are not on this podcast who have invested millions in fine-tuning models to make better automated fixes, but then 3 months later, a better state-of-the-art frontier model comes out, and that one will probably do better fixes than the fine-tuned model. I think that will get commoditized as well, so we'll have to look for something else.
Yeah, well, you and I need to talk about that because not everyone here are doing it based on models.
Yeah.
What do you think will be the thing that will not get commoditized?
I think user experience, and I think it's not one size fit all. Apple has great UX designers, Samsung has as well, and the world is pretty split on even religiously on iPhone versus Samsung, and it's a big market, and people have different tastes and different approaches, and I think, in my opinion, the user experience and the workflow and actually getting things, not just automatic remediations, but actually getting developers to use them and to get people to actually act on those recommendations is in our opinion, the challenge and the main indicator of success.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a lot of alpha in that insight because I think the if I call them legacy security industry and the VC, like cybersecurity VC world, I don't think they understand yet that developer experience or even like design or user flow that can be a moat. They just don't believe that, so they don't invest in it.
I think that I'm doing AppSec for a long time as a vendor before that also. And long are the days that you compete on who finds the most or who is running fastest or is running less false positives. People will not buy a solution versus another solution because it's a little bit faster or because it has 10% less false positives. It's all that experience. And I have to say, Ran, when I saw Arnica recently, speaking with one of your customers to partner, I understand what you're saying about the user experience. You build something really cool there and it just works. And really depends on the use case. So it may fit, if you know your ICP, your ideal customer profile, and you build a solution for them and you focus hardly on that, you will build the solution that works best for them. And mid-market and enterprise and small are not the same. And software companies and commercial companies are not the same. So you need to understand. And I think in those cases, those cannot be commoditized because they're more segmented. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think for sure you can see the huge difference, for example, between enterprise and mid-market and what people value, and even between if your ICP is technical or more high level than a CISO, like it's already not the same thing. And I think the more I talk with people, as you mentioned, I did the user experience and also how it influences the culture, how it makes someone's life easier, is that something that we see the most, because the easier their life, the easier they can also justify their success internally, and everyone wants to be successful and look great in front of their teams. That's in the end the goal. Thank you so much, guys, for coming on the podcast. If there would be one thing, just one last thing, because usually I ask advice for young listeners and the book, if you saw some of the episodes, the podcast, but I think here it's definitely not the case. But maybe if there would be some learning resource that you can recommend for someone who maybe to share your inspiration about open source projects, or to learn more, let's say, about how open source project can be impactful for security, or about SAST. If there'd be one learning resource, what would you recommend?
I don't think there's a resource for that. I think you learn open source by contributing to it, and it will be brutal. You'll get initially tons of brutal feedback, but that's probably the only way to learn open source. contributions.
Did you have any brutal feedback on your side? Like, have you contributed yourself and got the brutal feedback?
No, I usually give it to other developers.
Okay, so what was the most brutal feedback that you actually gave?
On a single PR, I don't know. It depends on the. I think I usually focus on stuff like readability and all those things. I think that is the core differentiator between what is usually open source code or good open source code and closed source code. You gotta make sure that it's maintainable long term, more readable. I don't think, or I haven't seen any like good resources on. I hope you guys have better suggestions.
I have one caution to people. I saw someone brutally responding to someone adding a bot that made changes to their code. I don't remember if it was security or quality AI bot, and they were trashing it. If you want to contribute, do it for real. Understand what you're doing, write it yourself, and don't add bots to people's repos or try to do that. It's just a mess.
And you, Aaron and Avram, do you have any suggestions?
So I have a suggestion for people who are doing their first steps in application security open source. I've been in AppSec for the last 25 years, and I've did offensive and defensive cybersecurity. I can tell you that from the open source perspective, for starters, I would guide them to start with open. There are a bunch of interesting resources at OWASP that people can learn about and learn application security from. It's a great resource for starters and for AppSec, and it's a combination of AppSec and open source community. So this would be my recommendation.
Same here. Advice for developers who want to go more into security, or security professionals that want to go a little bit more into development. I echo what Avram said. Going to us, there are a lot of very interesting projects on GitHub that definitely need contribution, including security testing. Testing a security product for security issues can be very interesting. Some notable projects, for example, is CDXGen. Another one is OSV Scanner by Google. Very interesting projects. Also encourage people to look at Opengrep and Semgrep. I think OCaml, in my opinion, it's actually a very interesting language coming from functional programming. Just a lot to learn, and people will be surprised how much help will be appreciated if you reach the right people. So
Yeah, I think maybe as you mentioned before, it will become a part of OWASP because you had the discussions there, and then people will maybe in 5 years will learn from that as well. Well, with ZAP, it happened the other way around, and it was part of OWASP, but now not
Not
anymore.
anymore.
So it changes all the time in the industry. So we'll see how it goes from there. Well, thank you so much, guys, for coming on the podcast and sharing how you contributed to project, your inspirations, and your support for that. Thank you. Yeah, curious to see what will be the comments for this episode once it's.
It will be interesting to see how this video ages
Yeah.
from now. If
Thank you.
cool partnership kind of thing will last. Currently, it seems we are all in the honeymoon stage, but we'll see. We need to prove it.
As you said, we'll see in 1 year.
see it was the 1 year anniversary.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye bye.